Welcome to Signs Unscripted. I'm Robin Donovan, Signs of the Times editor-in-chief, and with me today is...
Hi, this is John Robbins from Signarama in Redding, California.
And what's your title with Signarama, John?
My wife and I are the owners, so I'm one of the owners here.
Okay. And I understand it is fire season in California.
It is, and luckily so far this year, knock on wood, we haven't had any major fires start up, and I'm hoping it stays that way this year.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in Oregon, and so if you guys could go ahead and keep your smoke to yourself, that would be great.
Right. Exactly.
No, it is scary. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
There's something about smoke blocking out the sun that has a very otherworldly feel to it. And I understand you all are in the process of commemorating some really nasty fire damage from last year. Yeah,
so the anniversary of it is actually the 26th. It's Friday the 26th. That night, the fires, it was the car fire, started a few days before, and overnight on the 25th, it more than doubled, and it changed direction and started heading towards the city. It started heading towards Redding. At the time, I wasn't too worried about it because I was like, well, it's just another fire. It happens. It's in the, it's in our vicinity. It's in our range, but it's not. I didn't feel like it was a threat. That entire day of the 26th, I didn't feel that way. So until I got home and I could actually see the flames coming up over the ridge near our house, then it got a little more real at that point. Yeah.
So what happened next?
So that night, once we could kind of see the flames getting closer, but it was still on the other side of the river from our neighborhood. It was still about a mile and a half away. Within a very short time, only a few minutes, the fire had jumped the river and was burning the backyard of our neighbor's home. So we look over, we see the fire support helicopter hovering right over our head. We had no warning, no evacuation notices or anything at the time.
Oh my God.
We're kind of standing in our front yard waiting to see where the helicopter is going to go. And when it went about 150 feet from us and dumped the big bucket of water into our neighbor's backyard, we kind of figured that's our key to get out. So the fire had moved so fast that amount of time from seeing it on the ridge about a mile and a half away to being in our neighbor's backyard was maybe 6 to 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so my wife had a bunch of things ready to go, just in case. And we loaded that stuff up. We helped some of the neighbors get some of their stuff out, and, got on the road as fast as we could, along with a whole bunch of other people, because by then it had jumped the river. It had caused hysteria. People were going crazy, trying to get out, blocking the roads. It was a mess that night. But that night, over 40,000 people ended up evacuating. They moved the evacuation zone way back once it kind of started burning structures and burning homes and coming into town. So we just went and stayed on the other side of town that night. The next day we got back into the area, kind of got to see what happened to our neighborhood, found that over half the homes in our neighborhood were burned completely to the ground. And when I say completely to the ground, a lot of people have seen houses that have caught on fire and the fire department comes and puts it out. Well, there's still a large structure there, maybe burned and charred and melted and damaged, but there's still a house there. All that was left with all the houses, or with half the houses in our neighborhood, was just a smoldering pile of ash because the firefighters had to evacuate. We were in the area. It was on the news of the fire tornado. It was about 1,000 feet behind our house that night. And so the fire department and all the firefighters, they had to get out for their own safety, and they didn't go back in for hours after until everything had calmed down. That had then caused, they weren't able to save anyone's homes because of that, and they just had to let them burn out. And so when a house burns and then burns itself out to the point where nobody's helping it, no one's trying to stop the fire, it's just it's crazy to see. Yeah.
I mean, I think a fire tornado, it sounds made up, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and we drove right through that area as the tornado was coming and had no idea. We, no idea what it was until we saw it on the news. And, the winds were intense, the smoke, the fire, the embers flying through the air. It was all so intense. And then afterwards we see on the news and we see the timeline that we barely made it through that. It was pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy. So what was the impact? I mean, clearly it had a gigantic impact on your personal life and your home and your family. What about your business?
When that happened, basically everybody's efforts turned to helping. So, nobody was worrying about replacing their signs or their deadlines on their projects that we had at that point. Everybody was looking at all these people were just displaced from their homes. What can we do? Every business in town came in and was offering, food if you're displaced. The hotels, every hotel within a huge range was completely booked solid. And it didn't matter if you walked into the convenience store or a restaurant. Everybody was just giving and helping.
That's beautiful.
And it was super cool to see and to be a part of. We were staying at my parents' house after we evacuated. They're on the other side of town, kind of in the safe range. And we're like, we have to do something. And so that night, it would have been Friday night, the 26th, after we got back from seeing what was left of our neighborhood and the damage and stuff to our house. We went to the shop and called in a few of the guys, and we started printing on our flatbed. We started printing thank you signs for firefighters, first responders, police department. The National Guard was up here. CHP was up here. We did, and then we started printing and handing these signs out. We put a couple posts out on Facebook, and we printed out all of the material we had on our shelf on Friday and Saturday. We ran everything out. We called our Grimco rep. They met us down on a Sunday at the warehouse. We loaded up 2 pallets of material that they had, brought that back, printed that. At the end of the thing, we printed and handed out through like a drive-through process, about 6,500 signs. And we bought out every little wireframe yardstick we could find in the area and handed those out, and did our best to kind of litter the town with thank you signs for all the people that, helped save everyone that night.
And what was the community's response to all those signs?
It was amazing. We had, of course, social media was going crazy. We had a lot of people going, hey, what about the heavy equipment operators? Those guys are out there cutting fire lines. What about the Humane Society people? They're taking care of the animals.
Right.
So we went through and we made some custom orders too and added them in the mix. I think at the end of the day, we had 8 different designs, and for the Haven Humane Society, the equipment operators, fire, everybody. And we kind of every morning we'd run throughout the night. All of our staff volunteered to stay and keep running and printing. And we kept, we made like a drive-through type of a process. And we put out on Facebook, hey, we're going to have more signs ready at 8:00 in the morning. And then another time in the afternoon, we have our shop is, located kind of in an area with a larger parking lot and stuff next to it. We'd have people lined up in their cars waiting at about 7:30 to get signs.
Oh my gosh.
And we had a kind of created a giant traffic problem in front of our shop during those hours. And, but, it was an amazing response. And Grimco and HP both, we printed everything on our FB 500. And Grimco, all of those guys, they stepped up to help us out with material costs because we weren't charging anything for these things. People wanted to donate. We sent them to donate to one of the local charity things that handle all the money. And so, I mean, it generated donations, which wasn't our intention. We weren't trying to get money and donations from them. We just wanted to get this message out. But lots of people were like, hey, we want to donate. And so we kind of sent them to one of the charity people to take care of the money. And it was great. It was amazing. And we had, for months after, we still had people coming in. Can I get this sign? Can I get that sign? There was a few people that were trying to get the entire collection. of 8 different designs. And we kind of had to limit, a couple of the runs. We had to limit to 2 signs per car because the amount of people we had, we want to make sure everybody got something. And so people would come back through multiple times to try and collect the whole design. And there's still now, a year later, signs are still hanging in the businesses' windows and things like that. So it was pretty cool.
It sounds like kind of a silver lining. So we have just about a minute left, John. What would you say that you learned from this experience? Like, how has your position in the community changed, and how has the way you run your business changed after all this happened?
To us, it was a community service aspect. It was something I felt like we had to do. We had to do something to help because everybody else, everybody in town was trying to help everybody. We were affected by it. We were displaced by it. There wasn't a whole lot we could do, but be a part of it and help people out with it. So the way it's changed, we've always been very, very involved in the community. That's been one of our, my wife and I's, goals from day one is community involvement with our company. And, so it was, to us, it's not really a change, but, just being part of the community.
I think that's really beautiful. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I think this is one of the episodes where I've spoken the least, and probably also one of the best episodes so far. So this has been fantastic. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely.